Good afternoon, everybody. Esri Rosier here. And tomorrow is the big day. Yes, we have a very highly anticipated matchup tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. The 2-0 Philadelphia Eagles will travel down to the dump known as FedEx Field to take on the 1-1 Washington Commodes and our former franchise quarterback, Carson Wentz. Now, we all know the story at this point. The Eagles traded up to second overall to draft Carson Wentz in the 2016 draft. And he had that spectacular 2017 campaign, went 10-2, was an overwhelming favorite for MVP before tearing his ACL against the Los Angeles Rams. Missed the remainder of the season and looked on as Nick Foles led the Eagles to win their first Super Bowl over the New England Patriots. He struggled with injury in the seasons after that, had a decent 2019 campaign, really put the team on his back with a just banged up wide receiver core to win the NFC East. But he was unfortunately cheap-shotted out of the playoff game against the Seattle Seahawks by that scumbag named Jadeveon Clowney. But unfortunately, Carson Wentz totally fell apart in 2020. He would end up leading the league with 15 interceptions, despite the fact that he was benched in Week 12 against the Green Bay Packers. Jalen Hurts was inserted into that game, and that was the last that Carson Wentz would ever play as a Philadelphia Eagle. We traded him to the Indianapolis Colts, ended up getting a first-round pick out of that. And now we see Carson Wentz on his third team in 3 years, the Washington Commodes. Now, this game, there's going to be a heavy emotional atmosphere to this game because this was once our franchise quarterback, you know. I was a huge Carson Wentz fan back in the day. Like during that 2020 season, I didn't think that our struggles that year were his fault. I was defending him week after week. But by most accounts, Carson Wentz, he gave up on the city of Philadelphia. He did not want to fight for his job with Jalen Hurts. He requested a trade by most accounts. So he is now an enemy. And this game that we have tomorrow, so I'm not concerned about the offense. It's similar to my thinking heading into the Minnesota Vikings game last week. The offense doesn't concern me. Jalen Hurts looked incredible last week, arguably the best game of his career. 26 out of 31, 333 total yards. 3 touchdowns to 1 interception. He had that spectacular deep touchdown to Quez Watkins. Devontae Smith looks fantastic. After a quiet week 1 against the Detroit Lions, a lot of people were saying, oh, Devontae Smith has no catches. This is a concern. This is a problem. It was only one game. It was one game. If there's a trend of something like that happen, I get it. Miles Sanders, he was doing his thing too. The offense doesn't concern me. It's the defense. Now, I will say this. Jonathan Gannon, he did surprise me last week. I did not expect our defense to play that well against the Minnesota Vikings offense. The defense was a huge surprise for me last week because we shut down Justin Jefferson and we shut down Dalvin Cook. Adam Thielen, he wasn't a factor either. And then Jalen Reagor, the guy that was saying, oh, revenge is on my mind heading to Philly. He drops his first target. He catches a target for 7 yards. He gets nothing on punt returns. And then the Vikings had this one player, I should have said this in the last video. The Vikings had this one player, I think his name is Smith, wearing number 84. He has the nerve to wear Randy Moss's jersey, which should be retired, and then he drops a touchdown pass. We weren't going to catch him on that play. That was a touchdown. Like, what the heck, Vikings receivers? All of a sudden, you guys get Reagor, and then you guys can't catch passes? Reagor comes over, and all of a sudden, you got a case of the dropsies. But that's enough about last week. So this game, it's the defense. I'm concerned about the defense. Will our defense stand up like we did against the Minnesota Vikings, or will it look like it did against the Detroit Lions in Week 1? In Week 1, we got totally gashed by the run. DeAndre Swift, he was busting our chops, but Dalvin Cook, he couldn't do anything last week. So if we could get that defense that we had going against Minnesota, this game, I don't think it's going to be close. So the Washington offense, they have Terry McLaurin. They have this running back named Antonio Gibson. He's pretty solid. And they have Curtis Samuel. But I don't think that they can hang with our offense. I think that the Eagles' offense is significantly better than Washington's. But it all depends. The main concern for me, aside from the defense, is our pass rush, our defensive line. What is the pass rush going to do? Last week, even though I thought it looked better than in Week 1 against the Detroit Lions, we were still struggling to get pressure on Kirk Cousins. It wasn't until late in that game where we were starting to really kind of get to Kirk Cousins and make him uncomfortable. Carson Wentz, you have to get to Carson Wentz. Now, Eagles fans, We know this better than anybody. We know this better than anybody. Carson Wentz will not throw the ball away. It's been an issue for him ever since he was drafted. Carson Wentz, he will have some very stupid turnovers. Carson Wentz, he will give you a turnover, especially the fumbles. Now, in 2020, I mentioned earlier, he did throw 15 interceptions. But other than that, Carson Wentz isn't really known for throwing interceptions. But the fumbles, that has been an issue for Carson Wentz ever since 2016, ever since his rookie year. Carson Wentz is one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen in my life when it comes to fumbling. It's him and Daniel Jones. Like, this guy, he just fumbles when at the most inopportune times. You saw it last week. You saw it last week against the Detroit Lions. He was strip sacked in the end zone for a safety. Carson Wentz, he will not throw the ball away. There are so many plays where you'll be like, throw the ball away, but he will not. Carson Wentz tries to play hero ball. We all saw it in Philadelphia. You saw a little of it in Indianapolis last year. Carson Wentz, he's not smart when it comes to ball control. We have to get pressure on Carson Wentz because you know that there will be plays where you can get a fumble off Carson Wentz. You know that there's going to be plays where he's going to have that dumb turnover. And I see this game as being no different. There will be a moment late in this game where Carson Wentz has a ridiculously stupid turnover. There will be. It's coming. It will come tomorrow. It will happen. Now, as for the Washington defense, I think that their secondary can be had. I don't think their secondary is that great. I mean, the Lions, they did drop 36 points on them last week. But the thing about Washington is that they have a very good defensive line. I have nothing but love for that defensive line. Guys like Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen, Darren Payne. Those guys, they can get to the quarterback. Washington is very good at rushing the quarterback. Now, they won't have Chase Young. Chase Young, losing him, that's a big blow to that defensive line. But still, that's a formidable pass rush. Now, Jalen Hurts, as we saw in week 1 against the Lions, he can escape that heavy pressure with his legs. Jalen Hurts, he can get out of pressure. So this game, I really don't think that it's going to be that big of an issue. I mean, it is a division game. It's a division rival. Carson Wentz, revenge factor. But I don't see Carson Wentz playing well tomorrow. I really don't. Because Carson Wentz, it is so easy to get into his head. Like I noticed this even when I was a fan of Carson Wentz. There were so many times where after a play went wrong, he would just leave the field with his head hanging down just like this. Like, dude, like, freaking pick yourself up. Okay, you made a mistake. Move on from it. Do better. Like, Carson Wentz, especially in 2020, I saw him just fall apart after so many mistakes. Like, mistakes that not necessarily were game-changing, not mistakes that would have just put the game away, that would have blew the game for us, but he just never recovered. Carson Wentz, I just don't see him playing well because now Eagles fans, we tend to take over FedEx Field. That's like one of our second homes. Well, one of our second or third homes other than MetLife Stadium. That's another stadium we take over. FedEx Field, that's going to be full of Eagles fans tomorrow. And those Eagles fans, they are going to be booing, jeering, screaming at Carson Wentz. Will he be able to handle it? Will Carson Wentz be able to take the heat in his own building? I don't think he will. I think that Carson Wentz, I know that people are saying, oh, he's going to be out to do the Eagles dirty. He's going to be motivated to throw 400 yards on y'all. I mean, I could see that for a quarterback like Jalen Hurts. If Jalen Hurts was in a revenge game against the Eagles, I could see Jalen Hurts doing that. But Carson Wentz, I just don't think he has the mental fortitude to summon that kind of motivation. You know, I think that we're going to get into his head. I think after one play goes wrong, after that stupid turnover, he's just going to go all downhill from there. Now, another thing I want to point out is that this will be my third road game in my 3 seasons of going to Eagles games. I am 0-2 in road games. I saw us lose to the Steelers at Heinz Field in 2020, and I saw us get destroyed, annihilated, dismantled by the Las Vegas Raiders last year at Allegiant Stadium. I am 0-2 for road games. I need to see us win this game. I cannot go 0-3 on road games. I'll be at this game tomorrow. I cannot see us lose a third road game. In fact, not only am I 0-2 on road games, I'm 0-2 in games played on Sunday. I have not seen the Eagles win a game on Sunday when I'm in attendance. It does not happen. The Sunday games against the Steelers and the Raiders, they were both losses. Every other win that I saw, it was either on Thursday Night Football or Monday Night Football last week against the Vikings. I need this win. I need to see us win this game. And for us to, and for me to see me get this road win, to see us win this road game against Carson Wentz of all teams, that would really warm my heart. That would really warm my heart to see us pull it off over Carson Wentz. To see that road win for the first time with me in attendance over our former franchise quarterback Carson Wentz, it'll warm my heart. Now listen, I have no ill will against Carson Wentz. I mean, I will always value and appreciate what he did for us in 2017 because no matter how you feel about Carson Wentz, if he doesn't go 10-2, if he doesn't play like that in 2017, we don't finish as the #1 seed. Now, I know Nick Foles, he did finish the job, but Carson Wentz, those 10 wins were Carson Wentz. If Nick Foles was the starter for that whole 2017 season, I can't definitively say that we would have won the Super Bowl. I can't definitively say that we would have been the #1 seed. So I will always appreciate him for that. But some of the stuff that came out in the years after, like that whole story about how before the 38-7 game against Minnesota, the NFC title game, Carson Wentz was reportedly talking to other injured Eagles, saying how it didn't feel good watching the team win with Nick Foles. And Darren Sproles, Mighty Mouse, Darren Sproles took exception to that, and apparently they almost got into a physical altercation. It's stuff like that that really just soured my opinion on Carson Wentz. This used to be my guy. I used to be a huge Carson Wentz fan, but he's an enemy now. He didn't want to fight for his job by most accounts. So tomorrow, I hope that we dismantle Carson Wentz. Do you all remember that game back in 2010 against the Redskins on Monday Night Football? It was called the Monday Night Massacre. It was against Donovan McNabb. This was the season where we traded Donovan McNabb to the Washington Redskins. Now, McNabb, he beat us in his return to Philadelphia earlier that season, 17-12. But that second game at FedEx Field, we went to their house and we destroyed them 59-28. Michael Vick had 6 touchdowns. He threw a freaking 88-yard bomb to Deshaun Jackson on the first play of the game. The first play. And it was all over from there. 59-28. The second most points that the Eagles ever scored in a game. Behind a 1934 game where they put up, I believe, 62 against the Cincinnati Reds. I want to see a performance like that. Now, will it probably be 59-28? Most likely not, but a man can dream, folks. A man can dream. Tomorrow, we cannot lose to Carson Wentz. We can't lose to Carson Wentz. Like, if we lose to Carson Wentz, do you know how many narratives we're going to be hearing? Like, oh, the Eagles traded Carson Wentz. He made them pay. I don't want to hear a single word of anything like that. Don't let it happen, Philly. You go down there tomorrow and you take care of Carson Wentz. You show Carson Wentz that he was wrong to give up on the city of Philadelphia. You show Carson Wentz that we're better off without him with Jalen Hurts. So take care, everybody, and go Birds.